Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another true crime video. I hope you guys are all having a great day so far and hopefully your week is off to a good start. Before we get into today's video, if I can just ask you to do all of the YouTube-y things for me, make sure you like this video, share it if you find it worth sharing, comment down below what you think of this case, and make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already. These are just easy things you can do to help me out, and I very much appreciate it. So today's case is a story that has weighed quite heavily on me since I came across it just a couple of weeks ago, as this is quite literally every parent's worst nightmare. And I am talking about the tragic case of Preston Lord. But before we dive in to his untimely death, I want to talk about his life and the tremendous impact that he had on every single person that knew him. Preston Lord was born on September 23rd, 2007 in Arizona. He was born to his parents, Nick and Autumn, and was the second child to his older sister, Tatum. It was said on his memorial page that although Preston had many friends, there was no one he looked up to and admired more than his big sister. Later in life, his father, Nick, remarried to a woman named Melissa, who is often referred to as Preston's bonus mom. They all lived in Maricopa County, just southeast of Phoenix, Arizona. Life was going well for Preston. He loved the Seattle Seahawks and the Boston Celtics, and he enjoyed friendly bantering about his teams. Not only did he love watching his favorite teams, but he was quite the athlete himself, playing in youth, football, and soccer leagues, and he was also a member of the Combs High School basketball team and golf team. While he was clearly a well-rounded and talented athlete, his talents didn't end on the field or the court. Preston also excelled in the classroom, receiving many scholastic honors. He was the vice president of the National Junior Honor Society, president of his elementary student council, as well as sophomore class historian. In 2023, he was even awarded the President's Education Award from the U.S. Secretary of Education. His friends and loved ones described him as loyal, trustworthy, and responsible, and would always stand up for the weaker person. Preston embodied everything a parent can hope for in a child. In September of 2023, Preston celebrated his 16th birthday, which happened to land on the same day as homecoming. So he got dressed up in a black button-up shirt with a deep green and black striped tie and finished with a white rose boutonniere. He went out with his friends, maybe danced a little bit, and said that he had a really great time. He had just passed his driver's license test, and I don't know about you, but when you finally get your driver's license and you have this newfound independence, that's what Preston was doing. He was really enjoying this chapter in his life. Preston was truly an incredible kid and a light in every life he touched, but tragically, his life would be cut short just a few weeks later. October came around, and as Halloween crept closer, the flyers for all of the high school Halloween parties began to make their rounds. Now, when I was in high school, the flyers for these types of things were like physical flyers. You can only give them to a certain amount of people. However, in today's day and age, these flyers circulate through social media, so they spread everywhere. So on October 28th, Preston Lord decided to attend one of these parties in the Queen Creek Ranchettes. This area is described as a neighborhood with expansive living with a touch of rural charm in the heart of Queen Creek, Arizona. This neighborhood boasts homes on larger than average lots with mature trees, often providing spaces for horses, workshops, and other outdoor hobbies. So this is a very, very nice upscale type of area. What I'd imagine is more like an empty nester type of situation where their older parents and the kids are older and out of the house. This atmosphere is more relaxed and spacious, focusing on tranquility. But on the night of October 28th, the usually tranquil neighborhood would be trampled by chaos and trepidation.
911 emergency.
Can we please get an officer at the corner of 197th Place and Via de Palmas? There has got to be at least 250 kids here. They're walking the streets. We're not used to this. I'm not used to this in my neighborhood from being here 25 years. There's too many cars. These kids are going to hit each other. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get
really
killed.
Quick, is there any weapons or injuries that were involved?
Yeah, these kids have weapons on them because the kid just flew by and almost hit me when I walked out the street.
Do you see them having a knife or a gun, and were they pointing it at anyone?
He grabbed something from the side of his seat. I don't know, and called me.
Okay, so you didn't see a gun. So you didn't see a weapon.
No, but I see a lot of violence and a lot of stuff going on in these vehicles.
Okay, and what violence? What violence do you see?
They're going down the street right now. Okay, we have only 5 houses on our street, and they're coming from one corner down to the other, and they're doing at least 45 to 50 miles an hour.
Okay, and so they're speeding.
I have the legal right to stand in front of my property and tell people not to park in front of my home.
Okay, and I understand.
And I have the legal right.
Are they juveniles?
Yes, these are all juveniles.
Okay, and there's no weapons or injuries or confrontations?
Not yet.
911 emergency.
Yes. There's police force here now. We're in the neighborhood where there is a party going on. We have teenagers jumping our fence. We have watched 2 accidents. They're hitting each other in front of our yard. They're clearly drunk. They have alcohol. So they're now jumping through my yard. I mean, we've got kids running with beer bottles. They're hitting each other. We just saw 2 car accidents. I think they're too drunk. They're just driving away after they hit each other. Okay. Wanted these, like something bad was about to happen.
Everything seemed to have gotten out of hand very, very quickly as this party got out of control. There were kids reportedly driving 45 to 50 miles per hour in this small residential area where there's hundreds of kids everywhere. Kids were purportedly banging on the cars of residents as they were trying to leave their homes. There were people jumping over the fences, getting into people's backyards. Kids are getting into fights on the street. It was just very chaotic. All of this commotion going on, and it was hard to keep track of what was happening where. It was at this time that Preston Lord was hanging out with his friends, enjoying the night, when another group of somewhat older boys approached. In the group, someone wearing a black ski mask then ripped the chain off the neck of one of Preston's friends. When that gold chain was snatched, Preston and his friends attempted to get the necklace back. But that's when the confrontation quickly escalated and the night would turn deadly. The older boys began chasing Preston and his friends, and when they caught him, they started brutally beating Preston. Witnesses would later say that as Preston was laying on the ground, seemingly unconscious, the mob continued to attack him, kicking and punching him in the head, in the face, in the neck, in the back, all over his body while he lay there motionless. To make matters worse, it was also said that after Preston laid there, the boys would get on top of him while humping and dancing on his body.
911 emergency.
Hey, I'm at a party, and
What's going on? Take a deep breath.
There's a bunch of people out here with guns and shit, and they just jumped my friend, and he's knocked out on the ground.
Okay, are you
I don't even know where.
Okay, you're in Queen Creek, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. He's been unconscious for like 2 minutes. We need people over here.
Okay, I'm getting them started, okay? Don't hang up. Just stay on the line with me.
Thank you so much.
You know, the people that did this, are they still there or have they left?
I don't know if they left or they're still here. I got out of there as quick as possible, so I didn't get hurt. I don't know the people that are here. We don't have any beef with them or anything.
Okay.
Are people on the way?
They're on the way, I promise.
I didn't get here fast. I did not want my friend to die.
That's okay. They're going lights and sirens as fast as they can, okay? So me asking questions isn't slowing them down. We have lots of units that are on the way.
Okay.
So do we know if that person was breathing or not?
He was breathing, and then I came over here because there's a bunch of people over there telling me not to call the cops, but it's the safest thing to do. I'm scared. I don't know what to do.
Okay, you're doing the right thing. You're doing really good in giving me all the information that I need, okay?
Ma'am. We need you over here. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't tell it.
I can hear them in the background there. Let me know when you see the cars.
I got you. they're here.
Now, the friend in this call has remained anonymous, but in that call, you can hear him say that he was told not to call 911, but he snuck away and did so anyway because he did not want Preston to die. Another group that happened to be lifeguards came across Preston and saw the poor condition he was in and quickly realized that he wasn't breathing. When they couldn't find a pulse, they began CPR.
The subject that was assaulted, they're saying he's not breathing. Okay. Do you have somebody there not breathing?
Yeah, but he's not breathing. They're doing CPR.
Assault and someone's not breathing.
Okay. Okay. We do have a lot of help on the way. Okay. How old is the patient?
About like 17-ish, young kid.
Okay. Are you able to do CPR if you walk through it?
Oh, there's a bunch of certified lifeguards. There's a bunch of certified lifeguards right now. We all know how to do CPR.
Okay. CPR is in progress.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long have they been not breathing for?
Say it again?
How long have they not been breathing for?
We just, like 2-3 minutes ago since we called you.
Okay. Do we know what caused them to stop breathing, or what happened?
We don't know, but he just got jumped, and we feel a pulse now. Keep on going.
Okay, but if he's not breathing, I need y'all to continue, okay?
Okay, is he breathing now? Here.
Over here. Still? Do you want us to stay still?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you have police coming right up right now. Over here.
Okay, so they're with you?
Yes, they're running, and they have... Okay, EMS is taking over.
Police would arrive to the scene just before 10 p.m., where they found Preston on the side of the roadway in critical condition. Preston was rushed to the hospital, and it was discovered that he had lacerations to the back of his head, bruising inside the head, hemorrhage in the brain, and abnormalities to the blood vessels. The doctors say there were signs of a stroke, and Preston had lost blood flow to his brain due to the swelling. When the neurological exam showed no activity, the doctor said that Preston's chance of survival was very unlikely. And tragically, just 2 days later, on October 30th, Preston Lord was pronounced deceased. Now, on the night in question, it was discovered that there were actually two parties within about a mile radius of one another, bringing in hundreds of kids from a number of different high schools, as well as some older kids who had just gotten out of high school. As word traveled about Preston, authorities began asking the public for tips as to what happened, and rumors began spreading like wildfire as to who was involved and responsible for the death of Preston Lord. With all of these kids also comes text messages, phone calls, videos, pictures, TikToks, Snapchats, and all of the other ways that these kids communicate. Detectives really had their hands full with the sheer volume of data that they were collecting. The tip line was ringing off the hook with hundreds of tips. Now, it looks as if many of those tips were based on rumors and hearsay, and not so much from the people who were actually there to witness what had happened that night. It was later uncovered that those who were involved that night were actually threatening witnesses, telling them that they have to delete any pictures or video footage that they had. And if they talked to the police, they would be met with the same fate as Preston. So the FBI was actually called in to help with this investigation due to its complexity. And through all of the tips and pictures and text messages, interviews, and search warrants, the Queen Creek Police Department identified multiple persons of interest just weeks after the attack. But arrests wouldn't be made until much later. 4 months after the death of Preston Lord, on March 6th and 7th of 2024, the Queen Creek Police Department arrested 6 individuals in relation to the homicide. Now, initially, some of these names of the suspects were redacted due to them being juveniles. However, as they were being processed, the DA announced that they would be charged as adults. Therefore, their identities and names have been released. 20-year-old Dominic or D-Money Turner, 19-year-old Taylor Sherman, 18-year-old William Owen Hines, he goes by Owen, 17-year-old Talan Renner, 17-year-old Jacob or Jake Meisner, and 17-year-old Talan Vigil. A 7th person, 18-year-old Preston Billy, was booked after he turned himself in on an outstanding warrant. Now, with all of these arrests also came the seizure of their property, such as their cell phones and laptops. They also came with DNA samples. Each of the suspects gave buccal swabs and fingerprints. Police were able to obtain the geolocation of their respective cell phones, showing that they were in the vicinity on that night. And surprise, much of this information actually came from the application known as Snapchat. So as a PSA, even though the feature on Snapchat allows the photos and videos to disappear, they don't actually disappear. They are still somewhere out there and they are still accessible. So the authorities contacted Snapchat, and Snapchat immediately jumped into action and began collecting as much activity and information that they could on the respective cell phones within the time period on or around Preston Lord's death. Now, all of these suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, and everything I'm discussing is alleged. But according to a recently released police report, and this thing is 1,200 pages long, it is believed that on that fateful night, Dominic, or D-Money, was being told by his group of friends to go steal the chain, the catalyst of this whole situation. While this incident happened within just a matter of minutes, the evidence is showing that Talan Renner was the one punching and kicking Preston as he laid on the ground unconscious. Now, as two of the suspects are named Talan, we have Talan Vigil and Talan Renner. I will continue to use their last names as to make it as clear as possible. Now, people close to Talan Renner say that he admitted to hammer punching Preston a number of times before kicking him in the back of the head. Taylor Sherman allegedly told police that it was Talan Renner who hit Preston. Taylor's text messages also uncovered a conversation admitting that he, Dominic, Talan Renner, and Jacob, or Jake Meisner, were the ones who attacked Preston. During his interview, Owen Hines initially admitted to kicking Preston once in the leg, but then further admitting that maybe it was once, twice, or maybe 3 times before he backed away. Now, interestingly, I didn't see many witnesses or evidence that the other Talan Vigil, was involved in the fight. However, a Snapchat was uncovered where he was saying, quote, "I hit this kid and he fell and hit his head. Then I stomped on his head. Then I got word that he died. So I don't know," end quote. I just find this very weird because it doesn't seem to align with what the other witnesses and the other suspects are saying about that night. And based on my research, which I still have a lot to go, but it doesn't seem as if Talan Vigil was even friends with these other guys. That doesn't mean that he might have saw what was going on and wanted a piece of the action. It just seems a little strange to me. What makes this even more interesting is it would be uncovered that Talan Renner was attempting to point blame at Talan Vigil because they had the same name. So something just seems a little bit off to me, but it is still pretty early in the investigation. So hopefully things will become more clear as this investigation continues and as this case makes it to trial and things are more out in the open. Now, in my personal, very unprofessional opinion, I do believe that Talan Renner was the primary person responsible for the death of Preston Lord. Of course, the evidence is showing that the other boys were involved as well, and I'm certainly not absolving them of any responsibility. However, some text messages and Snapchat messages were uncovered, allegedly showing Talan Renner bragging about the fight, stating, quote, "Got in a fight, killed a kid, guess I don't know my own strength," end quote. And then something along the lines of Preston needing a closed casket because of the severity of the injuries that he sustained. I don't even know how a kid gets to the point of that level of inhumanity. And in my personal opinion, this just screams of poor parenting. Listen, kids fight. Sometimes things get out of hand, accidents may happen, but the level that this was taken to and the actions thereafter are egregious. One, fighting someone who's not fighting back is spineless. There's nothing to be proud about there. Two, kicking someone while they're down and purportedly unconscious is nothing short of cowardice. But to display this type of behavior after you've seen the damage you've done is psychotic. And the lack of remorse, I hope, will come back and bite them in the ass when it comes to their sentencing, if and when they are found guilty. Now, you may be asking yourself, because I certainly was, what type of parent raises a kid like Talan Renner? Well, in the police report, it was uncovered that Talon Renner's family was very well off. His family owned a number of different businesses, and allegedly, when one of the Renner children were in trouble, their problems would be solved monetarily. When Talon's father, Travis Renner, heard about the attack and the subsequent murder of Preston Lord, instead of holding his son accountable for his actions, he decided to take Talon Renner out of school, claiming that he was a victim of bullying, while in actuality, he was taking him out of school to bring him to their family cabin while his hands healed after he brutally beat Preston Lord. Now, it is rumored that the decision to take Talon out of school and bringing him to this cabin was the recommendation by their attorney, and perhaps it's good lawyering, but it's equally infuriating. Allegedly, Travis Renner actually had some of his employees sign NDAs, or non-disclosure agreements, to prevent them from discussing the allegations and purported admission from Talon. But clearly, money does not buy intelligence, because NDAs do not protect when it comes to allegations of murder. So his dumb little NDA idea may have prevented his employees from speaking out initially in fear that they would be fired and lose their jobs. But eventually, one of his employees, Ashley Reynolds, gained the courage and came forward with the information she had. According to her statement, Ashley arrived to work on October 30th, the day that Preston Lord's death was announced. She was told that Travis's son, Talon, was implicated in the murder. Ashley said that directly after the incident, Talon Renner admitted to throwing the first punch. Ashley went on to corroborate the claim that Travis did take Talon up to the cabin to let his hands heal. And then she explains that Travis Renner sold his shares to his business partner for $1 with the understanding that Travis would buy them back once everything was done. Essentially, he is protecting his financial assets in preparation for any of the legal battles that they would eventually face. I suppose this is a good idea, but it's still infuriating given the circumstances. Another witness to the aftermath of the Renner family is Lori Spiker. Lori had been in an on-again, off-again relationship with Travis Renner. Lori and Travis's families became a mixed family consisting of all of the Renner children. I believe there's 4, and her children, including her son, Brigham, also known as Briggs. Lori mentioned that over the years, she came to really love and care for Talon, and she felt bad that he was often misunderstood, but she also described Talon as being a very angry kid and a fighter. But the turning point for Lori was when she heard about these video surveillance in which Talon bragged about getting away with it being the murder, and the incident about the closed casket. It was at this point that Lori decided that it was time for her to go to the police with all the information she had. In her police interview, Lori Spiker detailed significant issues with addiction and domestic violence within the Renner family, as some of the children had already been admitted into rehab. She mentioned that Talon's older brother, Kyler, was a drug dealer and alleges that Kyler has been pushing hardcore drugs and makes fentanyl-laced marijuana carts. Lori mentioned that the Renner family is a powerful family in the area and people fear them, claiming that Travis talks down about the local police and how he was able to buy his kids out of trouble. She details one instance when Talon was about to be expelled from his high school, the American Leadership Academy, or ALA, so Travis went ahead and made a $10,000 donation to prevent Talon from being expelled. Now, as a little side note, the ALA was well aware that Talon Renner was a suspect in the murder of Preston Lord. However, they allowed him to play at the football games. So could that have been another instance of when Travis Renner was paying them off, or do they just have no moral compass whatsoever? I'll let you decide. Now, whether or not there is truth behind the accusation that Travis Renner was able to buy off the police, it remains to be seen. However, after this case made national headlines and the allegations of the police being bought off were out there, in February of 2024, Travis Renner was indicted on drug charges. And this came just a month after his oldest son, Kyler Renner, was arrested for aggravated assault in a 2022 attack of an older teenager in a parking garage. Kyler also faces charges for drug possession and paraphernalia. So I don't know if there was just so much attention on this family during the investigation of Preston Lord's murder, or if the allegations of the corruption are true and they needed to take these actions to prove otherwise. And if there was corruption and Travis Renner was paying them off, I'm sure they would be pretty upset that he was going around telling everybody about it. So maybe they just needed to make an example out of him. I don't know. But as I mentioned, Lori Spiker and Travis were on again, off again for quite some time. But she did have quite the attachment to the Renner children, as did her son, Briggs. So police did bring Briggs in for an interview. Briggs told investigators that Talan was seemingly panicking about the whole situation. While he was proud of his actions to his friends at school, Talan purportedly called Briggs crying when he found out that Preston Lord had passed away, saying that he was going to go to prison. Now, was he crying because he felt bad and perhaps felt a little bit of remorse for his actions? Or was he just scared of the repercussions for his actions? I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to say the latter, but you can go ahead and form your own opinions on that. Now, all 7 suspects have been charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping, and a few of the other suspects are also facing an additional charge of aggravated robbery as it relates to the chain, the necklace that was stolen, the kind of catalyst to this whole incident that led to the death of Preston Lord. And come to find out that this chain that they ripped off of this kid's neck was a $10 chain. It wasn't even a real gold chain, and that really just adds salt to the wound. But I've got to admit that I was surprised that they are facing first-degree murder charges. Often when we see first-degree murder, it usually indicates there was some level of premeditation, which I don't think there was premeditation in this case. Maybe there was. Maybe there's more information out there that we haven't seen yet. However, as I've come to understand it, it seems as if the murder happens during the commission of another felony, in this case, the kidnapping. That's how they can get the first-degree murder charge. Due to it being a felony murder at that point. And although we think of kidnapping as taking someone and holding them hostage and maybe asking for a ransom, in the state of Arizona, kidnapping can just be holding them against their will. And because Preston was unable to leave, the prosecution seems to believe that that is sufficient for the kidnapping charges. All of these suspects were held on a $1 million bond, and they have all pled not guilty to the charges. As of April, just earlier this month, one suspect, Talan Vigil, has bonded out and is currently on house arrest. So with this case, like I mentioned at the top of this video, the police department, the investigators, they really had their hands full with evidence. They completed a number of search warrants. They took in cell phones and laptops and gathered a lot of information from their respective social media accounts, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, etc. Not to mention that they surveyed the neighborhood looking for any type of ring camera footage or surveillance footage as to what happened that night. While I can imagine to the community and certainly to Preston Lord's family, it felt like this investigation was taking an eternity, as it took 4 months for these suspects to be arrested. However, with all things considered, with the sheer volume of what they had to comb through, the investigation was done in a somewhat timely manner. However, the investigation and the death of Preston Lord brought light to a pervasive issue of teen violence plaguing the neighboring towns of Queen Creek, Arizona. The community sounded the alarm on a group dubbed the Gilbert Goons, an unofficial gang of teenage boys and young men who would randomly attack people, mostly other teenagers, in a blitz-style attack, seemingly for no other reason other than to cause fear and dominance and maybe even out of boredom. Concerned parents believe that this alleged gang is responsible for more than 10 attacks before and around the time of Preston's death. In fact, Talan Renner's older brother, Kyler, when he was arrested back in January of 2024, it was discovered that he was being charged with 2 separate assaults, one in November of 2022 and one just a month later. Now, the police have come out saying that they were unable to connect these several cases of teen violence, which that in itself seems a little bit suspect to me. But they claimed that these cases went unsolved due to a lack of evidence and investigative leads. But as we've come to find out, a lot of these assaults were filmed, and this footage was making its rounds, as these things typically do. So I don't know if I believe that, but make of that as you will. However, they say that many of these tips began flooding in due to the attention of the Preston Lord case. But much of the community still believes that these suspects in Preston's death are associated with the Gilbert goons. Some parents have come forward demanding answers and accountability from the police as to why nothing was done in these attacks, claiming that if police had done something earlier, perhaps Preston would still be alive. While some suggest that it was mere incompetence on behalf of law enforcement, others believe it's something more along the lines of corruption. And I do feel like this is a good place to mention that the police department handling Preston Lord's death and that investigation, that's the Queen Creek Police Department, and the police department accused of corruption or mishandling the several cases of teen violence. That is the Gilbert Police Department. So it's two separate police departments handling these investigations. And to be clear, as of me filming this video, we are just at the end of April of 2024. The Gilbert goons have not yet been declared an official gang by law enforcement. And there's been no confirmation that the suspects involved in Preston's murder are associated with the alleged gang. With that being said, some witnesses have mentioned direct involvement between the Gilbert goons and some of the suspects. An unknown witness came forward claiming that Owen Himes, Jake Meisner, and Treston Billy were all a part of the goons, and Lori Spiker, Travis's ex-girlfriend, told officers that her son Briggs mentioned Talan being involved with the group. So like I said, as of right now, all of this is just speculation. It is possible that these are just rumors running rampant, as emotions are certainly high. But the death of Preston Lord certainly put pressure on the local law enforcement to reopen all of these assault cases, a few in which Kyler Renner seems to be connected with. Now, with these assault cases, because thankfully they didn't end in a murder like Preston Lord, the names of the minor suspects are still sealed. So while we can't be sure who they are, rumors are circulating that some of the suspects named in Preston Lord's case are the same kids involved in these other attacks. Again, we don't know for sure if that's the case. As this case progresses, I'm sure we'll learn the truth behind that as well. Now, if at some point law enforcement declares the Gilbert goons an official gang and somehow connects any of the suspects in Preston Lord's murder to that gang, we can certainly expect to see some additional charges. I've also heard some discussion that if these suspects are found guilty in the death of Preston Lord, they may face the death penalty. However, while their actions are egregious, because of their age, I don't believe they will face the death penalty, particularly the ones who were underage at the time of the crime. Also in this case, if these suspects are not found guilty of first-degree murder, the jury can still find them guilty of second-degree murder. So that is on the table as well. But that's where we are with this case as of today. It's an absolute tragic case. It absolutely breaks my heart. The more that I read the details in this case, it's just devastating. Preston Lord was truly an incredible kid, and what had happened to him is beyond comprehension. It's terrible. And don't get me wrong, it's not that anybody would deserve what happened to Preston Lord. It's just when you think about what a truly awesome, wonderful kid he was, it's just such a shame that such a bright light was taken from this world. And to make matters worse, in my research, I also uncovered that this all happened just days after his sister Tatum's birthday. And from what I've seen, they had a very close relationship. And I can only imagine that this is going to leave a dark cloud over this time of year for the rest of her life, for their entire family. This also happened right before the holidays. So there will be one less place setting at the dinner table for Thanksgiving. There's going to be less presents under the Christmas tree every year, and especially his parents. As parents, we think about the first time we buy their sports uniforms, or we think about their first dances, when we buy their first suit. And especially at the time of Preston's age, I'm sure they were planning for college. but never in a million years did they expect to plan his funeral or to buy his headstone. And I cannot imagine how painful a process that must be. And my heart really goes out to Preston Lord's family. While I hope they gain the strength and they're able to grieve peacefully, I can only imagine that it's going to leave a major hole in their heart that just cannot be filled. But if you are in a position to help, they have set up a GoFundMe for Preston, as well as a memorial page where you can read more about Preston Lord and what they are doing in his memory, as well as purchase some merch. So I will leave those links in the description box below if you want to check those out. Now, I also want to say, bless those lifeguards who stepped in on that horrific night. I've heard stories that there were people watching guard as they were trying to save Preston's life to make sure that no one came and attacked them as well. And because of the actions that they took, Preston Lord was able to have just a few more days on this earth. So his family and his loved ones were able to say goodbye. And I'd like to believe that as Preston was passing to the other side, he was aware and perhaps comforted by the idea that he was surrounded by his loved ones and not just alone, dying on the cold pavement. And I hope he is resting peacefully as the wheel of justice is turning. With the death of Preston Lord, many groups began forming, demanding justice and accountability in their community. Preston's bonus mom, Melissa, spoke at many different events and marches, truly advocating for Preston to ensure his memory never fades.
The devastating loss of Preston's life was due to unnecessary violence. Our child will never be coming home. And we need to prevent this from ever happening again. Empowering our youth and building their self-confidence, worth, and value will support their outlook in life and give them the courage to stand up to bullying.
Preston was one of the best parts of my life. He worked hard at both sports and his schoolwork. He always did what I asked him the first time I asked him. He was a kind, gentle, loving soul that we will miss forever. The acts of violence committed against my son on October 28th and how he died as a result will unfortunately also remain in my mind forever. It's important to me and my family that we are a part of this solution, and I know that many of you here tonight feel the same way. I always told my kids that if you want to do better, you have to be willing to look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and say, I can do better.
A grassroots campaign was initiated with the slogan, "Be an upstander, not a bystander," really embodying who Preston Lord was, because he would not just stand by and watch as people were bullied. He would stand up for what was right, and he did so until his last day. My heart goes out to Preston Lord's family and his loved ones as they have suffered a tremendous loss. And I hope justice is served for every victim of this alleged gang. And I hope that every person terrorizing this community will soon find themselves behind bars, because clearly, if they want to act like animals, that's certainly where they belong. Now, I do plan on doing more videos about this case. There is a lot to unpack and certainly things that I didn't cover in this video, but I want to do it more in like a presentation format with where we can kind of go over the evidence and dig into the documents and maybe dig into the Gilbert goons, because there is a lot to unpack there as well. So let me know if that's something that you'd like to see. But other than that, that's all I have in this case for now. Be sure to like it if you want to see more content like this. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Share it if you find it worth sharing. And let me know what you guys think about this case in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.